How do you get paid more for what you know? Let's face it. If you're trying to build wealth, one of the quickest ways to build more wealth is to have more income so you have more income to put towards that wealth. And one of the best ways to increase your income is to get paid more for what you do, what you know, and the things that you bring to your clients, the way you solve the problems. And so in this episode of the Affluent Entrepreneur Show, we're going to talk specifically about your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, and your expertise, your journey, whether it's in digital courses, whether it's in speaking, coaching, at service providers, professionals like this. How do you set yourself apart in a way that they see you as the premium provider and pricing becomes no object? Well, in this episode, we're going to break that down for you. So look forward to seeing the episode. See you soon. All right, welcome to this episode of the Affluent Entrepreneur Show. This one's going to be a fun one because we're talking about something that is near and dear to my heart because it is the way that I built my businesses, but it's also the way that I actually pioneered and built my wealth. And this is about how do you get paid more for what you know? How do you take your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise in a way out into the world where you're not seen as a commodity? Listen, if you've been exposed to me at all, you understand that the Affluence Blueprint, one of the pillars, the very first pillar of the Affluence Blueprint is the generate pillar. We have to have a system to generate our income, and so we can move our cash flow from a drip to a flood. See, the more cash flow we have, the more ability we have to accelerate our path to financial freedom. And so in that process, one of the things that we need to think about doing is how do we scale our income, or how do we optimize our income in a way that we have more left over to work with? And so this is about us understanding, well, what does it take to increase our prices? What does it take to do that? And one of the things that I've mentioned before, and we're going to talk about deeply in this arena, is that in this episode is this idea of a unique methodology. Okay. One of the things that I did in the valuation and the work that I did in building my CPA firm and my financial services and my consulting was that I created a unique methodology that when the market looked at me, they saw me differently. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can increase your income. You can create more sales, but here's the challenge with that sometimes, especially if you're a sole provider, a solopreneur, and you're there and you're this personal brand and you're coaching, you're speaking, you're consulting, you're doing one-on-ones. The only way to make more sales a lot of times when it is driven by your active pursuit and your active involvement to deliver it is to get on that treadmill and to run faster, to run longer, to run harder. But when we get on that treadmill and start running faster, longer, harder for too long, there is a limit, and we're going to reach breakdown. We're going to reach burnout. We're going to crash and burn. Okay, it happened to me. The other way to do this is to find a way to charge more. Now, this isn't a pricing conversation. This is a value conversation. And I get it that when we charge more, we're talking about pricing, but the reality is that price is never an issue with your customers and with your clients. The issue is the value they perceive, the value they receive, the value you articulate. It's that drives this. And so one of the questions is, how do we change the perception of value, the delivery of value in a way that the market sees it vastly differently? When it comes to services, whether you might be creating a digital course, you might be creating an online program, you might decide you want to be mentoring and coaching, masterminds, speaking, professional services like I've done. I've done all of it. I've created digital courses. I do mentoring. I do one-on-one consulting and coaching and mentoring. I have a coaching group. I speak all around the country and the world. I facilitate. I negotiate. I do all of those things. The question is, am I the only one that does those in the area that I do them in? And the answer is no, I'm not. And in all likelihood, you're not either. But are you talking about it and delivering it differently than everyone else? That's the thing that will start to drive the distinction. And is what you're doing solving a pervasive need or problem for the client? So if if I'm speaking about it differently, and I'm going to break down a actual framework for you, actually two of them. If I'm speaking about it differently, the market's going to perceive it differently. If I'm delivering the results, the market's going to see it differently. Here's the way you look at it. If you are, and I come from the bean counters, the accountants out there. Yeah, most of us, we're ticking and tying. We're doing tax returns. People are coming out of tax season right now as I film this, and so a tax return is a tax return is a tax return, at least in the perception of the clients, if you don't do it right. But the fact is that an accountant can provide more services, more value when you set it up properly. The problem with most accountants is they don't. And so what they're doing is they're swapping hours for dollars. They become seen as a commodity. So they become part of a math equation that has no value to the customer or the client in any great length. And your only way to increase or scale your income, your profits, is to try and do more. Well, that hose is only going to take so much pressure before it bursts. And so what I want to do is say, how do I scale my pricing? Let me give you a for instance. When I left my firm, when my firm broke up back, and we're going back a ways, it was in the 90s. My partner was charging both my partners were charging $150 an hour. I was charging $175 an hour. Today, decades later, they're charging $225 an hour. I'm charging north of $1,000 an hour minimum. Okay. And the reason for it is my positioning in the market and some of the things we're going to talk about here. So it's really about standing out in a way that sets you apart. Here's another way to understand it. Premium conversations lead to premium fees. But in order to be in those premium conversations, you need to bring premium thinking to them. So let me say that again. Premium conversations lead to premium fees, but in order to have premium conversations, you need to bring premium thinking to it. That means that you got to think differently than everyone else. You got to have the conversation differently than everyone else. You might be delivering the same service. I do valuations. There's plenty of people that do valuations. They have the same subject matter expertise that I do, but the way I talk about it, the way I deliver it is different. In fact, so different that I had an attorney call me up and said, "Hey, Mel, I've got a project. This one I think is complicated. I think there's a fair amount there. I want you to go through the project and tell me what you think it's going to cost. Make sure you consider everything that's possible and all the contingencies, because I want to make sure that you're fairly paid." And so then he says to me, "And just so you know, you're the only one we're speaking to because people told us you're the only one we should use for something like this." Now, pricing is no longer a matter. Pricing is no longer a topic of discussion. Simply, can I deliver the result? How will I deliver the result? Can I hit their deadlines? And what does that look like? Okay, so they hired me into this project, which was a very, let's just say, lucrative contract. The fact is that the knowledge base is out there in other people's heads too. But this is the thing that I want for you, is the same thing, where the market sees you differently than everyone else in the space. You might say, well, it's saturated. Well, you're having saturated conversations then. You're not bringing premium thinking. You're not having premium conversations. So I want to walk through a framework. And those of you that are listening, I'll kind of draw it out for you verbally, but you can see it on my YouTube channel. And we'll make sure that we hook it up here so you know where it is. And I'll make sure that you get access to the graphics too. But when we talk about this, I want to talk about a framework that I call the Standout Authority Matrix. And when we come to this, whether you're doing digital courses, whether you're speaking, whether you're writing, whether you're consulting, whether you're coaching, whether you're mentoring, doing masterminds, this is going to apply, and this is your key to setting yourself apart. And then we're going to talk about how do you create a unique methodology that actually elevates it even more. So when it comes to this idea of being a standout, there's two things you have to master. And the first thing you actually have to master is your knowledge. In other words, do you actually know the stuff? Putting in the work to make sure that you are knowledgeable on the topic that you're talking about or that you're delivering on is huge. So we got to know the stuff. And there's either those that have low knowledge and those that have deep knowledge. The second piece we got to manage is our notoriety. There's those with no notoriety, and there's those that have great notoriety. So really what we're doing is we're managing what we know and how we're known. That's it. But here's where this starts to play, is that when we can end up in one of four places in this model. And that is this. First, if I have low knowledge and no notoriety, these are the people that I affectionately call the task junkies. I don't mean them to be, it's not a derogatory perspective. It's just, this is what they do. They're primarily focused on doing stuff. They're focused on a checklist. They're focused on getting things done. They're focused on tell me what to do and working a work program. They're not focused on creating the solutions. They just focused on tasks, okay? So the kind of compensation you're going to get typically is lower here, because these are just people going off of a checklist, and they don't have a lot of notoriety. They're not known in the space, and they don't have a lot of knowledge. They're being directed in the process. And in fact, what I say is that most of the time they have no real focus. The focus is being handed to them. Now let's move over to the right. Let's say that we have no notoriety, but we have a vast amount of knowledge. We have done the studying. We have done the work to understand it. These are the folks that I call the bookworms. They're really knowledgeable. They're the wizards behind the curtain. They know their stuff. There's these people that, like actuaries, they're not exactly, and if you're an actuary, I'm sorry, but actuaries are not necessarily known for their personality, but they do a lot of number crunching. They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of expertise. So they're not known, but they have a lot of knowledge, okay? And these folks that are the bookworms, they're knowledge focused. They love the study. They love the data journey. They love the knowledge, okay? But then there's this other group. These are the folks that have low knowledge, but they're very well known. This is the only quadrant. This is the upper left quadrant. This is the only quadrant I want you to avoid. Okay, this is the people that know very little, but they can market the heck out of things. Okay, they're the ones that I call the Great Imposter. And here's why. When we go out to the marketplace and we don't have a lot of knowledge, but we have the ability, gift of gab, the gift of sales, whatever it is, sales chat, we understand how to convert people and bring them in and bring them on as clients. That's great. So we get the sale. The problem with that is sooner or later, we get found out. The emperor's got no clothes, and we become the Great Imposter. There is no staying power when you have low knowledge but high notoriety, because sooner or later, people realize there's no depth to what you know, or what you know is actually false. It's incorrect. And I see this a lot in the financial space, where there are people out there that are saying things that are absolutely false. They're untrue, and it's going to get people in trouble. The problem is that the public doesn't discern it, doesn't understand it, doesn't realize it until it's too late. Okay? So the Great Imposters, their primary focus is a marketing focus. They're not coming from a place of service. They just want to make the sale, and they're transactional in the way they do things because they know that their relationship with their clients is typically short-lived. All right. Then there's this group in the upper right quadrant. They're the ones that have great notoriety. They're the ones that have a deep level of knowledge. They've done the work. They did the premium thinking. They've done the work to make that happen. These are the people that I would call the experts. Now, here's where I want you to play. Now, a lot of people will say, great, that's what I want to be, is an expert. The problem with an expert is that you know stuff. And there's a lot of experts out there. I can look at every other financial person that has certifications and education and training. They all have knowledge. They know stuff. That doesn't make them good at service, and it certainly doesn't make them a premium. What we need to do is play in a little narrow segment of this expert quadrant. And that's that upper right corner of the expert quadrant. That's where we want to play. When we play in that upper quadrant, the cream of the crop and the positioning that you have is no longer just an expert, but rather it's a standout authority. When you become a standout authority, you will get paid more. Whether it's in courses, whether it's in speaking, whether it is in consulting, there's a reason that I can get $25,000 for a keynote. Okay, it's because of my positioning and the work that I've done to get to this point. There's a reason that there's people that can get $100,000 consulting contract. There's a reason that people are able to sell their online courses for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. One, they get the results. That is important for sure. They get the results, and it's good stuff. But they have positioned themselves properly. They've done the deep thinking. They have deep knowledge. They've brought the premium thinking into a premium delivery. All right. And these folks, the standout authority, their primary focus is impact. How do I make a difference? How do I improve the human condition of my clients and my customers through the work that I do? So this is the game that I want you to play. I want you to play to set yourself up to be that standout authority. Now, how do you do that? Well, here's how you do it. I think that everyone that needs to start to consider, if you're creating digital courses or you're creating knowledge-based businesses, okay, where you're selling expertise, experience, consulting, those kinds of things, coaching, you need to have a unique methodology. So I want to break down what it takes to build a unique methodology and the key components of it to make it happen that's going to set you apart, where we take pricing off the table. You have the ability to scale your revenues and your profits because the perception of value is much greater in the marketplace. And when you follow that perception of value with the delivery of results, game over. Game over. All right. And so here's the thing. Let's just look at how this unique methodology is built. It's built on 4 primary elements. And what we need to have in place is this. Is first, realize that our unique methodology is to move a client from point A to point B. One of the biggest mistakes that many experts or many people make is in their courses or in their coaching or in their curriculums or their speaking is that they're actually trying to give them A to Z. I mean, I get it because you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of experience, a lot of expertise, and you know that it would serve them. I'll tell you something. When I did my very first live event, we're going back a ways. We're talking 2000 and God, it was a decade ago, over a decade ago, okay? And I did my first live event. I had 27, 29 people in the room. 3-day event. And I poured my heart and soul and all the knowledge I had from decades of entrepreneurship into their brains. It was such good content and totally useless, totally valueless, because what I did is I overwhelmed them. I tried to give them everything from A to Z, but all they needed was A to B. They weren't prepared to take C through Z until they got to B. And this is one of the mistakes that I think a lot of us make. We think that we want to give them everything, and we do, but they need to be ready to receive everything. It's the reason that college courses are broken down at 101, 201, 301, 401. We need to make it and give it to them in a way that it sets them up for success. And the way you do that is you make sure that you know what their A is, where their current reality is, and what their B is, what the current pervasive need problem is that you need to solve. Once you know that, that's what you're creating your unique methodology to first. And then we'll layer in the rest to get them to point Z. But if we don't get them to point B, they won't get anywhere close to Z, all right? So the first thing is to understand what point A and point B is. Now, once we know that, it's going to be built on 4 things. 20 points, 20 thoughts, 20 insights, okay? 2 frameworks that you need to create, and I'm talking about diagrammatic frameworks. A single process And when done correctly, you can deliver it a lot of ways. Okay, so let's just jump in a little deeper into this. So what are 20 thoughts? There's insights. This is the information that you capture. I have a process that is a unique proprietary process of how I capture my knowledge, my wisdom, my expertise. I work with my clients on this in many, many cases to build out their knowledge in a way that allows them to speak to what I call the 4 communication pathways. And so when we catalog our information in a detailed way that allows us to speak to all elements, heart and mind, logic and emotional, in that way, it starts to allow us to make that happen. Now, I'm focusing on just 20 points. What are the top 20 points that someone needs to understand to move them to point A to point B? Now, I may not use all the 20 points, but I'm going to start there. Okay. So we figure out what are the key 20 points that we want to have in place. The second is we need 2 frameworks. There's 2 kinds of frameworks that you need, and they're both diagrammatic frameworks, visual frameworks. These are important, and I can go much deeper into this. This is something that I'm known for. I get brought into companies to help them build these and do that. And so the first framework is what we call a process framework. This is the process of getting the transformation. A lot of times this is a Venn diagram or a quadrant model, something like that, but it's a visual that says, here's how the process will work in a picture, okay? And there's a lot of persuasion and there's a lot of layers when you do these frameworks correctly. The second framework that you need is what I call a value visual. It is the reason why they should work with you. It is if the process is the transformation, the value visual is the transaction. It's why they should be working with you. In other words, what typically this is like a ladder. So they see themselves on a lower rung of the ladder. They desire to be on a higher rung of the ladder, and there's this gap in between. And since that gap's in between, your process framework is the thing that fills that gap and gets them there. So what they're doing is they're self-identifying their current reality, comparing it to their aspirational desire and saying, how do I get there? And you happen to be that person. But the key is this: when you speak to their current reality at a level that they say, wait a second, they get me. And when you speak to their aspirational desire, they go, oh my gosh, they know me. That's what starts to bring them in to have premium conversations, because now you're also drawing a picture for them that allows them to realize this person knows me and this topic much better than I had ever imagined. That leads me to the third piece. So 20 thoughts, 2 frameworks, and a single process. You want to have a proprietary process that has certain aspects, and I'll talk about those in a second, that is the progression from point A to point B. Now, this is the thing that happens, is that your proprietary process is built on a couple of things. One, it needs to have milestones. These are the big rocks. But every milestone needs to have an outcome. What is the outcome? Now, we have something called the Proprietary Process Builder that helps graft this out for people, and they build it into a template so they know specifically what's the milestone, what are we trying to accomplish, why are we trying to accomplish it, okay? So we know each milestone and the why. The second part of that is, once I know the milestones, is each milestone is going to have a set of action steps. 2 to 5 or 7 maximum steps they need to do to accomplish the milestone. That's it. So you're going to have 3 to 5, maybe as much as 9 maximum milestones that they've got to go through. They each have an outcome, and they each have 3 to maybe 5 steps. And the thing that starts to bring this to life is that each milestone will have 1 or 2 magic bullets, worksheets, templates, tools that make it easy for your client to implement. So now all of a sudden, I'm sitting with a client and say, here's my insights. Here's the frameworks. Here's the value visual, which shows you where you want to go and where you are. And here's a proprietary process that we use to get you there that has milestones, action steps, and some magic bullets to make it easier for you. That leads me to the last piece. And the last piece of this is that you have multiple delivery channels. When you build your content, whether it's a course, whether it's coaching, whether it's mentoring, whether it's speaking, when you build it based on this unique methodology approach, it doesn't matter how you deliver it. I can go and speak and do a keynote for 45 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes. I can do a 3-day conference. I can do a 4-day conference. I can do coaching. I can do masterminding. I can do workshopping. I can facilitate. I can do it in an online course. I can be on a panel. All of it's already built in, so it gives me the flexibility to deliver it multiple ways to increase my ability to earn from the same premium thinking that I do. Your ability to deliver is going to be based on your story, your style, and the delivery that you want. It's how we connect. So if we look at this whole unique methodology, the information, the insights, this is the what. The process framework that you're creating is the how. The value visual framework, where they see where they are and where they want to go, is the why. The proprietary process that you create is the if. If they do it, here's what they get. And then the multiple delivery channels is the way. That's how a unique methodology works. That's how you start to set yourself apart in a way that starts to give you a position in the marketplace very different. We can sit down and we can talk through it, and it doesn't matter how commoditized that industry is. When we start to talk differently about the same solution, they'll look at you differently. They'll price it differently. They say, I know it's the same solution, but there's something about it that Mel knows differently. He delivers it differently. His results have been great. I get it. I'm going to pay more, but I'm good with it. So this is the way that you got to look at. If I'm going to create a course, if I'm going to do something with services, I'm going to take my knowledge, my wisdom, my expertise out there. This is how I'm going to get premium dollars. This is why someone can get paid $100,000 for a keynote. This is why someone will get, I've got a friend who's getting paid $1 million a year for one-on-one coaching. I get paid well. I'm sitting on boards as a consultant, getting paid, multiple 6 figures because of my way I think about things, the way I deliver things, and the way I position myself. And I want the same for you. Listen, this is all driven by me trying to scale your income, optimize your profits, optimize your cash flows, so we can build your wealth to get you to financial freedom faster. And one of the greatest ways to do this is to take your knowledge and expertise and put it out in the world. It's one of the highest margin businesses out there. You can do it from a computer. You can do it from your phone. And you don't have big offices. You don't have big overhead. Your margins in a business like this is 40% to 80%. It just depends on how you operate it. It's not like a product business where you have all that overhead and you have inventory and you have manufacturing costs and delivery costs and all that stuff. I can deliver this with a Zoom. I can deliver it with a Zoom and a computer. It doesn't take a lot, but now all of a sudden you have this high margin business that's delivering for you. And the reason that people will pay premium fees is, one, you brought premium thinking to it, and you get premium results for your clients. I hope that this helps. I hope that you start to look at your world and say, where can I take expertise out there? What can I do today to start to create, whether it's an online course, a coaching program, speaking, doing something as a side hustle even. But even though it's a side hustle, you don't just flippantly put it out there. You bring premium thinking to it. You create the insights. You create the frameworks. You create the methodology, the proprietary process, and now you deliver it in a premium way. Because think about that. All of a sudden, the side hustle becomes highly profitable, and you go, I'm out. I'm out. I'm going to step aside. I'm going to focus 100% on that because now I got a business that's profiting 50, 60, 70% of every dollar coming in. That is what I want for you. All right. So I hope that this helps. Listen, we're going to do more and more on some of these different pillars of the Affluence Blueprint to help you generate and scale your income, because that will drive your wealth creation, as well as some of the wealth creation stuff too. We're going to do all of it because it all fits together in creating that rich life that you want. Because remember, the critical outcomes of the Affluence Blueprint, the critical outcomes for me is for you to live a richer lifestyle, which isn't about the money, but it's about the feelings and the experiences and how you're living life. It's about creating a life that's based on a deeper impact, an impact for those you serve, but also an impact to those you love, to the right and left, and who you become, the one in the mirror. And it's a life of complete freedom. Yes, financial freedom, but that's a rudimentary freedom. I want you to have complete time freedom, to decide what you're going to do with your time, when you're going to do with it, and to have mind freedom, to have the peace of mind, to know that your loved ones are cared for, that you're taken care of, that your movements, your missions, and the causes you love are taken care of, and that you can go in peace. So I hope this helps. I hope this maybe hits a hot button for you that gets you up and says, what do I need to do next? How do I start to do this? Because remember, it doesn't take a lot to make a lot. Literally, an extra $500 a month can turn into millions of dollars over the right amount of time, invested properly. All right? So if you have any questions, if anything comes up for you, do me a favor, let me know. I'm here to serve. I'm here to support you. That's what this show is about. Money, wealth, business, even life. Let's make it happen, okay? I believe that financial freedom is your birthright. We just need to go out and claim it, all right? And if I can help you in that way, reach out to me. I have a special website just for you called askmelnow.com. It's where you can post your questions, you can leave me questions, and I'll make sure that I bring them on the show to get them answered on some of my Q&A episodes. And if it's something that makes sense, I might even reach out to you and say, hey, jump on the show with me. Let's coach this one live. Let's have a conversation and support you on this journey. You're no longer alone on this journey to financial freedom. And I look forward to seeing you in another episode or on the road as I'm out there speaking or doing the things that we do. All right? Make sure you say hi. Make sure you reach out. And until we see each other again, always, always strive to live a life that outlives you. Cheers.